Hi everyone, I'm Ben Savage, Developer Fellow with Code for Canada.
And I'm Aakash Harpalani, part of the Transportation Services Division at the City of Toronto. And this is a map of Toronto overlaid with 66 markers across the city. Each of these dots represents someone that died on our streets last year. 41 of these were pedestrians, 13 were cyclists or motorcyclists, 12 were motorists, and all of them were preventable and unacceptable. Each of these dots represents a story. Someone who was a brother, a daughter, someone whose family and friends loved them dearly and missed them. Our mission through the Vision Zero program is to completely eliminate traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries on our streets. But in order to do this, we need to start redesigning the way we move, intersection by intersection, street by street.
We'd like to introduce you to Julie. Julie is a mother who walks her son to school every day. And along the way, they have to cross a busy road that looks like this. Those flashing X's above the crosswalk, they're there to warn drivers to stop for pedestrians, but they're not always obeyed. Every morning, Julie comes with her son to this crosswalk, presses the button multiple times, grips her son's hands tightly, crosses, making eye contact with the drivers in the hope this will encourage them to stop for her. It's a pretty harrowing experience, especially with her son there, and she thinks it could be made a lot safer. So she calls 311 and asks the city to consider installing a traffic light.
Cue Terry. Terry's an investigator in traffic operations, and he makes traffic lights happen. When someone like Julie calls 311, Terry's the one that springs into action behind the scenes. He starts collecting information on Julie's intersection, requests the data he needs, and then uses his technical expertise to make an informed recommendation. Like Julie, Terry is also a pedestrian, a cyclist, a driver, a road user. He really relates to Julie's story and wants to make sure that A, if a traffic light is warranted at the intersection, that it happens quickly, and B, if it's not, that Julie understands why. If we want to make our city safer, we want residents to feel safer on our streets, we need to ensure that people like Terry have the tools to do their best work.
And that's what the Code for Canada tells us. Good old technical mishap. That's what the Code for Canada tells us. The city has been trying to modernize these systems and processes that Terry and others like him rely on for some time. But these are big, complex systems with lots of stakeholders and users, all of whom expect to be able to continue to do their work as the systems are modernized. So we had to figure out, it was our job, to find a path through this and move this project forward. Working side by side with staff, we wanted to understand what goes on behind the scenes. What we found was that the kinds of tasks that Terry performs in response to requests like Julie's are really, they're quite representative of staff needs more broadly. Staff need to view available data in the context of a map. Staff need to bring multiple kinds of data together to perform complex analyses. And staff need to take this data and these analyses and communicate around them across divisions. By making things easier for Terry, we could take the first step towards making things easier for a whole lot of people. We started with applications that look like this. These are actual applications that people at the City of Toronto use. And we asked a lot of questions. What's confusing? What's missing? And also important, what is already working that needs to keep working? All in all, we conducted 23 user interviews over the span of 2 months. So there was one day where we literally visited every corner of the city. I think we used all the subway lines. And one thing that we came to understand was that a lot of these people doing this work, they rely heavily upon two main systems, Crash and Flow. Crash is the system that stores all of the city's collision data, while Flow stores what's known as traffic volume data. That is, information about how many people are using the roads and via which modes of transportation. But these are two separate systems, and a lot of transportation-related work is about using these data sets together, which means that staff are constantly switching back and forth between Crash and Flow to do pretty much anything.
And don't even get me started on trying to view both of these data sets on the same map.
And so, one of the things that we came to understand was that We needed to find a way to bring these two systems together. They were also made in the 80s, long before, as a sense, you can imagine if these were like the hairband of traffic applications. Systems made in the 80s that no longer meet the needs of staff. To put that in context, Vision Zero was only adopted by Toronto City Council as part of the road safety plan in July 2016. That's 35 years after these applications were first introduced.
So 35 years is a long time. Cities change, neighborhoods grow, and road safety plans become less car-centric. The problem is that our systems haven't caught up. They still use outdated maps. Different types of data are siloed in separate applications. And some types of data, especially around pedestrians and cyclists, are still collected and stored manually in non-digital formats. On the left is a hand-drawn collision diagram that someone took a day to make on the ground floor of City Hall. How can we examine and prioritize safety interventions across an entire city at that rate? On the bottom right is a physical pen and paper worksheet that's used to collect pedestrian safety data. How can we give multiple road users primary consideration, let alone even equal consideration, if collecting the requisite data is slow and costly? The short answer is that we can't, that our systems that are built in the 1980s can't meet our needs in 2019.
So we saw an opportunity. What if Terry had one integrated, revamped platform to help him perform the investigation process? He would need to figure out what data is already available, request data that's missing, and once all the data is assembled, conduct an investigation report so that council has the data they need to act on Julie's request.
As the fellows started diving into the process, we discovered it looked something like this: a physical traffic count form that people like Terry filled in to get the data they needed. Invariably, there'd be a lot of back and forth over email and phone, trying to fill in the important details that this form was missing. And once all that was figured out, you'd wait and wait and wait some more, until about 3 months later, you'd finally get your data.
So this is obviously a huge problem. How can we address this? We started by sketching out possible designs to meet user needs based upon extensive user research. Those designs, combined with some of the workshops and interviews that we did, surfaced promising solutions that made their way into design mocks. And those design mocks became early prototypes, which we then put in front of our users early and often to collect the feedback. By doing that, we quickly gained insights that fundamentally changed how we thought about this problem. We didn't really focus on our early prototypes around the investigation process, but we were hearing from our users that they really cared much, much more about quick, reliable access to the underlying data. By gaining these insights in a rapid, iterative, and agile way, we were able to reach our first alpha launch in mid-June. Within 24 hours, over 40 investigators across the city had used our platform, and we were already starting to get our first user-submitted bug reports, which is an exciting thing for us, by the way.
Putting an alpha out and seeing how our users responded to a real, tangible thing that they could immediately play around with, and yes, poke holes into, was incredibly satisfying for our team. But it also validated the process for others at the city, who could see firsthand that the fellows were dedicated to really understanding their needs and problems, that they had real influence over this thing that was at the core of their jobs.
So what are we building? We're building a platform that we call Move. Move combines collision data and traffic volume data, and in the future, many other types of data to help people do these complex analyses. Move brings together crash, flow, and some of those paper forms you saw earlier into one seamless end-to-end experience that we can incrementally build upon to meet more and more user needs of the city. And here's what that looks like. Terry comes into Move and searches for a location quickly and easily. No more messing around with outdated maps or map interfaces that harken back to the good old days of MapQuest. He selects a location, and from within the tool, he can see what kinds of data are available. But he can also view reports directly from within Move. Now, this doesn't sound revolutionary, but this actually used to be a totally separate tool. So we're bringing that in and integrating these use cases. Once Terry understands what data he needs to get, he can then move on to request it. We see there's a speed volume count here that's 10 years old. There's been new development, so we need to conduct a new one. But he also wants to make sure that Julie's concerns are validated to council. So he's going to request, in addition to that, a pedestrian crossover study. Once he selects the types of studies, he can then move on to provide details. Now, many of the details here appear on those paper forms before. You see there's when he needs the data by, what reasons there are for this request. And we've kept them here in a more streamlined user-friendly format. But there are also details like days of the week. Those didn't appear on the form. These were the kinds of things Terry would receive constant emails and follow-up phone calls to sort of hammer out the details. Once he's satisfied with the request, he gets confirmed, instantly receives a confirmation. No more phone calls daily to figure out where his data went. And the status of the request can always be tracked right from within Move. So what we just showed you in this demo here, this might seem fairly straightforward, and it is in some sense. But it sits upon a whole lot of behind-the-scenes platform building work over the course of the entire fellowship to rebuild and reimagine how the city collects, stores, and manages all of its transportation-related data.
And that's why this project is just the beginning. The work that our team was enabled to do is going to allow us to make Move a truly integrated data platform, built from the ground up to address not just current mobility, but the challenges of future mobility as well. But the fellowship has been about so much more than building software to meet a specific problem. Working alongside the fellows has changed the way we think about redesigning our processes. Too often we get lost in a world of requirements and RFPs without returning back to the fundamental question. Why are we doing this in the first place? Working with the fellows has shown us the power of building things by focusing on the user, doing so incrementally, and continuing to validate our assumptions. As a division that's responsible for the transportation network for a whole city and the safety of Torontonians that travel our streets, we have no shortage of systems and processes that are ripe for reimagination. And that has us excited to continue to focus on projects where we can have a real impact and use the incredible data we have at our disposal to make the city safe for all residents, no matter how they move through it.
Which brings us back to Julie. This is what her intersection looks like now. Imagine how much safer her and her son feel knowing that they can now cross this instead of the crosswalk that was there before. But more importantly, how much better they feel about the city, knowing that her call to 311 resulted in real, tangible change.
Now let's be clear, better data and software isn't going to solve road safety on its own. We're not going to eliminate traffic-related fatalities overnight. But Move will significantly improve our ability to better make decisions around road safety. Because at the end of the day, we want to move from a map that looks like this to one that looks like this. Thank you. Merci.